and welcome to Classical Schmassical, the anti-classical classical music podcast. Tune in every Saturday as we discuss, deconstruct, and dissect what it means to be a musician in the modern world. I'm your host, Alexa Letourneau. I use any pronouns you like. And our guests this week are here celebrating the 55th anniversary of the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. And I am just so excited for our discussion today. Would you mind each introducing yourselves and talking a bit how you're involved in the commemorative anniversary concert?
I guess I'll start. My name is Adegoke Steve Colson. I've been in the association since 1971. At that time, it was about 6 years old. And I've been in, so I joined in Chicago, but I'm actually from New Jersey. So I was kind of the odd one out in terms of the people that were in the AACM. It's a Chicago-based organization, so most of the musicians were from here or had been here for some time. So I'm tied in as a pianist, and very fortunate that Composer Forum was involved with the partnership. And so one of the finalists, along with Elizabeth A. Baker and Renee C.
Hi, I'm Renee Baker. I'm a member of the AACM. Kind of a newbie when these guys talk about being in the group, you know, in the 70s and 80s. I joined approximately 2008, coming from an absolutely, totally classical background.
Yeah.
And so I entered the dark side about 2008.
Yeah.
And so I'm conducting Rudresh Mahantapa's commission for the Great Black Music Ensemble. And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to get back together with the group after this long pandemic break. And literally today at dress rehearsal was the first time that I'd seen some of these people off Zoom for almost 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm Vanessa Rose. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm actually a Western classically trained violinist and have a degree from your school, in fact, Manus and your school. And I'm here in my role as president and CEO of the American Composers Forum. So we have partnered with the AACM to enable these three commissions to happen, to be developed over the course of now several years, longer than we expected.
Sure.
Performances taking place this weekend.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm like I said, I am very, very excited to have you all here, especially from multiple different viewpoints during this creative process to put on an event like this. So just kind of like a big question to start us out. What does this concert mean to you, both as an individual and within like a broader context?
Well, I tried to put some of that into the piece. So for me, it was, you know, coming out of college and actually expecting to go back to New Jersey after being in Chicago for maybe a year or so. I thought, okay, I'll go back. So I originally didn't think I thought I'd be here for maybe 5 years in Chicago. But as it turned out, I was actually out here for about 16 years before I moved back to New Jersey. So the latter 10 years was entirely working with people in the AACM. So I have been performing with my band, but college buddies. So when I got to the AACM, we started, myself and Chico Freeman, we had been playing together in college. So we joined, and that was sort of us starting to play on a more professional basis with other people that were actually earning a living, performing and traveling. So I personally, I can go back, it's like it was maybe yesterday. I didn't really play in a big band setting. And that's the one thing that they had. So we would meet on Saturdays and rehearse new material, because the organization was kind of leaning towards producing your own, products. So composition wise, and then also in terms of staging concerts. So I just have a lot of memories of that. But what it did was it introduced me to a lot of different philosophies about how to construct a composition, or how to approach music making. You know, again, basically spending a lot of time every Saturday with those people. Yeah. A number of whom are no longer here. So I had a chance to meet all of the founders, and then other people that were, you know, that were part of the organization early on. There are a lot of musicians who were actually part of it at the beginning, but they dropped off after 2 years because it was entirely musician run. But and I did meet a lot of those people as well, but it's kind of gratifying to me because there was, let's say, necessary reason for the AACM to still exist. A lot of organizations have, you know, have gone out of existence. Sure. Just like the pandemic, like Renee was saying, the pandemic has caused a lot of changes over the last 2 years. So definitely, for me, it's just a good feeling to come back and have been selected to write a piece to commemorate the longevity of the organization. Yeah, that's really wonderful. Vanessa, Renee, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, my story is completely different.
Yeah, amazing.
I played for 26 years as the principal violist of the Chicago Sinfonietta. So I live totally in the classical lane.
Yeah, amazing.
Even in terms of composition, my first commissions and things were all symphonies. So it was meeting Nicole Mitchell and some of the other people from the AACM who kind of said, well, we think you belong in this camp, even though I said I don't improvise. But I learned, you know, I coached. And in order for me to understand this new language, this new vernacular, this new vocabulary, I figured the way for me to access it was to write. Yeah. You know, like when you're using learning any kind of foreign language. So I started writing for combos, and then because orchestras are my orientation, large ensembles, I started crafting works for large creative music ensembles. And so that helped me to learn and fill in the holes of what I didn't know in creative music. Yeah. But the wonderful thing for me is that I've been able to marry classical, creative, jazz, improvisation, comprovisation, linguistics. I've been able to marry all of those things and develop not just traditional notation for orchestras that don't improvise, but gestural conducting for those ensembles that read and can organically follow a conductor. So that's what Vanessa was witnessing today. Because with the piece that I'm channeling, I have to be able to give them organic signals about how to bring their voices out through Drescher's piece. So it's wonderful for me because I think the AACM has grown. Though they don't generally do so-called classical things, I've brought that stuff to the table in my work, and I know other composers have also in the past. Yeah. So they're learning to be effective doing all of it, and not quite so strict about the boundaries between the genres. Yeah.
And I'll add to that too. As I mentioned, I'm a Western classically trained artist, and I too was very focused. Both my parents are as well. Very, very within the classical focus, and it's been such a life journey for me for many years to explore beyond that. And I think, and maybe this is a lot of your audience too, this idea of anti-classical, I think of it as a yes and Renee is such a great example of kind of this beautiful collaboration musically. Exactly. And so many, what's possible, right? and not
Yeah.
thinking about kind of these different, we don't even try to use the word genre at American Composers Forum. We're really trying to figure out where are those self-identified ways. One of our artists, for example, working with AACM right now is the Honorable Elizabeth A. Baker, who defines herself as a new Renaissance artist.
Yeah.
And, I think we each think of our own musical approaches and cultural backgrounds and languages in our own unique way. And that's what's so beautiful about working with living artists today.
Yeah, I really love that. And I think that that really fits with like you were saying, with the vision that I have for this podcast. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek to be anti-classical classical music podcast. But it is really something that I find very important, is this the way that we engage with genre when we're thinking with like a composer brain versus a programming brain versus a listening brain versus performer brain is something that can really be so impactful. And I think that there's a lot of stake put on genre that isn't necessarily useful, and at worst it can even be hurtful. And I really love the way that like all of these organizations have come together to kind of say, no, we're making music that is full of joy, we're making music that is full of expression, and it doesn't necessarily need that label on it. I think it's really wonderful. And like you were saying, with this collaborative process, I find collaboration to be so integral in the musical art, and getting to have 3 individuals here, each involved in this concert in different roles, is such a phenomenal and unique experience for me to get to talk with these multiple perspectives. Can you each kind of talk about what the collaborative process looks like for you in your own artistic practice, either with this concert or just in general?
Oh, well, from the collaboration, not so much in terms of the composition, but I do have the people in mind writings because I do know or did interact when I was living here with most of the musicians in the Great Black Music Ensemble. So for me, it was kind of thinking in terms of personal terms of what type of phrasing or where a person would more likely fit in. So in terms of size or things like that. So some of it has to do with texture, voicing of the chords, that type of thing. But yeah, that's kind of where it goes with me in terms of the composition. But we did have a very interesting period where we spent time together, myself and Rudresh and Elizabeth. We were invited to go up to Minneapolis, St. Paul. So it was, also we were able to decide, well, about how long we should allow ourselves. So different things like that. It was good to kind of rub shoulders with the other people involved, and it helped to, I think, to lead it into the program is very helpful, so that you have a good idea, because, I think it's interesting. A lot of people, they appreciate music and things like that, but they don't quite understand the amount of preparation it takes.
Definitely.
When you want to actually present things. So sometimes, like you want it to remain sort of private until you can really, edit or change. Sometimes you get an inspiration for something and you want to add that, or you find a detail and you want to take it out. So there are different things that you really want to present the piece, to the public. So I think that's the part that really helped to influence that, because then, like for me, example, the piece that I did, the AACM can use that piece anytime they want to, and they can perform it, ad infinitum, or however they see fit.
Yeah.
And so when I did the piece, I wrote it in 6 chapters, and 2 or 3 of the chapters that can be removed if there's a time constraint. So, or we can go much longer than the 30 minutes or so that we're planning for this evening. It would be easy to go for an hour or so, if we decided to do that. So
sure.
there's room for expansion or, you know, to contract it. But a lot of those type of things are things that become available to you once you know, begin the conversation and get an idea of what other people are trying to accomplish. So it's very helpful.
Yeah, I composition is my main musical output as well, and getting to that collaborating with performers who I know, and I know how they play and I know how they feel the music, is really something that's so special. And like you were saying, with kind of making a piece that is playable all like down the road, I always find it so fun, because it's like I almost get to collaborate with like future musicians who maybe I'll never meet in person, but it's something so joyful and really wonderful.
I think it was really special about that time together in Minneapolis, St. Paul, which was already 2 years ago now. Like Ade was talking about, it's a whole week together, just experimenting with things, meeting the other artists. Obviously, there's already a long relationship Ade has with AACM, but and Rudish knew them, but hadn't really worked with the ensemble in this way before. Elizabeth was completely new to everybody. And actually, she talks about this in an article in the Tribune published yesterday, Chicago Tribune, where it was just to be a part of this ensemble and to connect with artists in this way was such a new experience for her, and validating in so many levels as well, on so many levels. And I think it is that you both already touched on this, but that human connection, the relationship, you know, the music that results, the concerts that happen are all, you know, wonderful outcomes. But our hope through this whole collaboration right now is that these relationships continue and more music happens.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, well, I don't collaborate.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because I have ideas that I want to get down on paper or get down in sketches. And of course, from decades and decades of being in orchestras, my main concern with orchestras is that everyone be able to read and process the rhythms and everything at the same time.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the AACM. This group of people, they've learned to read me very, very well and very quickly. And I don't, and maybe my philosophy about composition is different, but I don't wait for inspiration. Now, I write almost every day, okay? And so there's a quote that stuck with me years ago, and it's a quote from Picasso, and he says, you know, you can sit around and wait for inspiration, but it must find you working. So what I find is when I'm composing, I'm honing my chops. I'm honing my compositional chops, my listening chops. And I really don't write for specific people. I assume that any group that I give a piece to, I've done the thought work before I give the piece to them, if this is something that can result in success for them.
Yeah.
So I don't have time to process, this one can read 16th notes, this one can't do 8th notes, this one doesn't read, this one can't follow accidentals. I give that group something that is accessible for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a huge, huge archive, because as a composer, this is just my opinion, too many people write as if that one piece is going to be the only time they're going to be heard on this earth. I'm assuming that everything that I write, I'm going to find an opportunity for, or something very similar. So I don't write thinking that, oh, if this one doesn't get played, then it's not a success. I keep going. I keep writing. So like right now, I'm conducting 2 orchestras at DePaul University. Every piece that every ensemble is doing is mine. So they've done conducted improvisation. They're doing film scores. They're doing totally through composed symphonies that have been commissioned by other orchestras. So to me, what the AACM means is that we have a broad spectrum of abilities.
Yeah.
And if we don't use them all, we cheat ourselves. And I guess I just don't have time to sit around and chew the fat about it.
Sure.
I've got time to do the work so that when the opportunities come, I am ready. And I'm a quick study. So when I got Ruth Drescher's piece, we had a conversation about how this was going to work with the skill set of the AACM. And I think he'll be happy at the end. I think the ensemble will be happy with what they get. But I know this sounds terrible, but I'm not running a democracy. I got a product to get to the bottom of, and I got to get them there quickly and to the best of my ability, and give the audience something also, so that they come away with a positive experience.
Yeah. I don't think that sounds terrible at all. I think it sounds really, it's like a really efficient, wonderful process. And like, that's one of the things I really love most about composition is the way that like everybody does it differently. I was, for my undergraduate research project, I was trying to do it on compositional voice, and it kind of spiraled out of control. And before I knew it, I had taken the introduction of my paper and ended up with 60 pages of research and went, well, this is a whole paper in and of itself. And one of those reasons is because it is just so diverse and so personalized. And I think it's really wonderful.
It is. It is.
Building off of that, how would you each kind of describe your artistic identity? I know we were talking a bit before and finding out that the piece is called was it Finding Your Voice? Was very fun to me, because that's kind of what my whole that's my whole research focus right now. So what has each of your individual processes been finding your voice or your identity within your art, and how has that process been, and how would you describe that?
Steve?
Well, finding your voice or the compositional process for me, well, I started to collect records when I was 10 years old, and I had an allowance. My parents would give me an allowance. So I would save for a couple of weeks, and then I would go to this record shop in Newark. It was the Branford Record Shop. I remember it distinctly, because you would go in and you go through the record bins. And so at the time, I didn't have, or it wasn't customary that they would play a piece in advance. So I would just go through and look, and then I would just, like say, okay, I'm going to choose this one. And I would take that record and I would take it home and listen to it. But I had no way to hear it prior to actually buying the record, right? So, but I started to collect, and I wound up with a very large group of records. So I was listening to people like Ornette Coleman and Albert Ayler when I was 12 and 13 years old.
Amazing.
A lot of people didn't listen to free jazz at all. I had the record. I bought the record. I bought John Coltrane's My Favorite Things record 2 weeks after it came out. I think I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
So I used to sit next to the piano. There was a piano, and I had a record player right next to the piano. And so I would imitate the different people, and gradually I got an ear for Charles Mingus and a lot of Duke Ellington and things like that. But my music teacher, my piano teacher, Mr. Henry Smith, he was actually a rehearsal pianist for the New York Metropolitan Opera. And so I became aware of people like Robert Merrill and Jan Pierce and some very great singers that come out, the top singers at the Met at the time.
Yeah.
And actually Mary Martin, because he was accompanist for Mary Martin as well. And she was like Peter Pan on TV, right? So I was familiar with those kind of people, and we started listening to Broadway shows and South Pacific and all that type of stuff. So my training was classical as well. I went to Northwestern University as a piano major, and Northwestern is a feeder school for the Chicago Symphony, which was the #1 symphony in the world for about 12 years when I was attending. So I had a ear for classical all along because there were no jazz courses. There was no jazz studies.
Yeah.
In fact, there were no African-American studies either. There was none of that.
Yeah.
So I developed my compositional style just from listening to other people and listening to the music, like I said, listening to music that I was buying. And I didn't have any outside references because there were not a lot of other people my age of 12 or 13 who were buying John Coltrane records and now early records. So I basically got to where I'm at now in terms of primarily listening, at first, I would say listening. But then, like I said, gradually working out different things with the people in the AACM, because you realize that people like U.B. Blake and the Ragtime Masters, they were playing Chopin, playing Beethoven, they were playing Brahms and all that. And then what they would do is they would alter it and they would add their own little inventions in between, little musical devices. And if you listen to them, you hear all of that. So when you talk about the genres, that's interesting. Vanessa was talking about the, not trying to deal so much with so-called genres. But I used to work with Max Roach for a while because I was in his play that he did with Amiri Baraka. So we had a lot of conversations about that type of thing. And he and Duke Ellington and a lot of other people, they didn't care for the word jazz at all. Mm-hmm. So Max used to tell me that he would prefer that it be called the music of Charles Mingus, the music of Charlie Parker, the music of Dizzy Gillespie, and that, so on and so forth. So I appreciate a lot of what you all are saying. My thing is that we use a lot of different things. I remember Muhal, we talk about Berg, Hindemith, and also Muhal also organized things according to gestures as well early on. AACM actually, they used to do plays without a script. AACM musicians very, very inventive. So if you look now, people like Roscoe Mitchell, Henry Threadgill, Amina Myers, they did a lot of experimentation. And actually myself and George Lewis and Kahil L. Douglas Hewitt, we were experimenting also with what you would call graphic notations or a new music script and those type of things.
Sure.
So to me, it is a very interesting type of thing, but I try and draw on different artists, what I hear in different artists. Yeah. Like I've been to hear Puccini, the last couple of operas at the Met. We went to hear Tosca and things like that. Mm-hmm. So all of that I feel is available, including less industrially developed societies, things like that. Because if you listen to the art ensemble, they would go into the mountains and learn the type of instruments that were being used various places around the world. So it's it's a big planet with a lot of different cultures. So I just find myself drawing on, like Eric Dolphy said, his music is in the air. Yeah. And so for me, you just draw it from a lot of different sources. It could be from, Balinese or Russian peasant songs. It's a lot of things that you can pick up.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I would agree. I simply act like a sponge. Mm. And we're absorbing things all the time. Yeah. No matter what we listen to, no matter where we are, no matter what sounds we encounter. And for me, that just comes out on the page. Mm-hmm. so often the question is, what is Black music, or what is great Black music, or whatever? Well, it's whatever I as a Black person produce.
Yeah.
And I absorb tons of things. Now, some things, if I like them more than others, you may hear more of them in a particular work. But absorbing opera, absorbing symphonies, observing, I'm going to use the word genres again, just because that's what they use to sort the CDs in the bins at the bookstore.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're not afraid to experiment, you're going to use what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of what I produce sounds very classical at times, and then it falls off the deep end because, some other influence jumped in.
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it all works because it's all me.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about composing anything. Because I in a conducting lesson the other day, I showed a student a piece of mine that started with traditional notation, then went into graphic notation, then went into color field scores, and then came back to just chords. Then we went back to traditional notation. And they're like, how is all this in one piece? It's in one piece because you train your ensemble. And for me, it's the Chicago Modern Orchestra Project primarily. You train them to access all those.
Yeah.
So there's no division. When you put it on the stand, nobody falls over, they don't roll their eyes, because they know it's me. They can expect almost anything.
Yeah. Is that sense of self and authenticity that you have and you experience in your music, is that something that you hear, or is it part of the compositional process? Because it's something that I and a lot of composers that I talk to, we are sort of like searching for this idea of authenticity in our music. And I'm curious how you engage with that.
Well, step one, stop copying other folk.
Fair. Yeah.
Stop copying other folks. Stop appropriating with the intent of appropriating.
Yeah.
You can listen with the intent of absorbing and learning from. So to me, it's all about intent. So if you as a composer have decided that you want to explore something, take it in and then distill it through your vision.
Yeah.
Because nothing is worse than you doing a bad imitation of me.
Yeah.
Or a bad imitation of some other composer.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find your voice.
Yeah.
And your voice will be made up of some of the same ingredients that other people have used, but it will come through as distinctly yours if you're authentic in what you access and use.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, I have nothing to add. These two are amazing artists that I think spoke so beautifully from my perspective as somebody who works with a lot of creators and listens to a lot of newly created music. That authenticity is what comes through it, that makes it compelling. Yeah, I have nothing to add. It was already so well prepared. Thank you.
Yeah.
I get a lot of questions from a lot of composers because I train a lot of people. So I train conductors and I train composers who are doing a lot of really interesting things. But when I see them going to copy, look, if you want your success, then you have to find your voice.
Yeah.
And success means different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you only write 2 pieces in your lifetime and you park them in a drawer because nobody asked you to play them, well, then that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
So you take those pieces, you form your own groups, you get people to play them so that you can hear them on something other than a MIDI format.
Yeah.
You know, we use money for all kinds of things. Well, use money to hear your music also. And if it means as much to you as most composers say that their music means to them. So you invest in you and you develop your style, your voice, you find out what works, what doesn't work. And then again, for many composers, there's this illness of regurgitating everything that you know in every piece as if it's the last piece you're going to write.
Yeah.
Stop that. That's why a lot of people don't get played.
Yeah.
Because you decide you need 4 contrabassoons, 2 harps, stuff that people just generally don't want to hire, or pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be on you that piece doesn't get played.
Yeah.
But I am the luckiest person in the world. I don't have that problem. I get calls from opera companies, calls from symphonies, ensembles, wind groups. What you got? What you got? What you got?
Yeah.
And I always have something that with a swipe of Sibelius can become something else.
Yeah.
Right? So you have a big archive, and it's my voice, and I can change it at will.
Yeah. That's so fun. Yeah. Funny enough, the theme song for this podcast was me going, oh, I need this soon. And I took an old piece and I said, whoa, you change the mode, change the instrumentation, boom, theme song. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's exciting.
It is. It's a fun process and just really awesome. I want to be very respectful of your time. I really appreciate you joining me. So as we are wrapping up, do you have any sort of closing advice for younger musicians in today's world, just now beginning their professional careers?
Renee kind of put it in a nice little capsule there, because it's a very different time now in terms of being able to pursue your, an individual idea. And the technology lets you communicate much easier. I mean, there's still you have the large corporate entities, but like she was saying, I think you invest in yourself if you have something that you want to, you want to have people hear it. You have to find those ways, but I think it's more available now. It used to be that, there were certain record labels, and if you didn't get on that label, then, that was the end of it, but gradually you have different people, and, there were different people that over time that did independent things, but I think there's more latitude now. So that would be my advice, to move on or again, you can get in partnership with somebody if you want to start. My wife and I started a label back 1979, because a lot of the guys left the show because there were not a lot of recording opportunities. So they thought there were more opportunities for that in New York. And so that is one reason a number of people left and went to New York. But I would say pursue, have in mind what you want to do. I used to tell people, young folks, take 10 minutes to just maybe sit in a chair, quietly in the corner, read a book, and then just kind of contemplate what you see that you would like to do for the next year, or what is your goal over the next 2 months? And but just take time to not be so caught up into movies and television and everything. Just a little quiet time to yourself, and then you can maybe visualize what you would like to do, separate from external influences that would tell you, well, you should do this or you should do that.
Yeah.
You have to, you have to kind of settle on something that you actually would like to do, because they think music is a lot of fun and you can enjoy and you can go here. I say, yeah, but you don't understand the amount of work that you're going to have to do. It's difficult. You have to practice. You may have to learn new material.
Mm-hmm.
Traveling sometimes is difficult.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different angles. So that would be my advice, though, if you're kind of contemplating music field, look at what your skill sets are, and how would you like to have your music heard, and then you just have to strike out and go for it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And stay curious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And stay off Facebook. I mean, I have fun with it, but I mean, stop looking left and looking right at what other people are doing, and then using that as your measuring stick, because everybody on Facebook is a mega success, right?
Yeah.
Hardly anybody writes on Facebook, I suck, right? Everybody's a star, a mega star, whatever, on Facebook. That's time that is wasted when it deflates you.
Yeah.
Because you look left and you go, well, he's got a record contract and he's got, 12,000 likes on his post. Who cares? You can't eat likes most of the time. So just do the work.
Yeah.
Do the work, be ready, and the opportunities, when they come, and they will come if you stick with it. If not, quit and get out of the way of those of us that want to continue doing it, because you're muddy in the water.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to do it, stop.
Yeah.
And don't torture yourself. But there's fun, there's fulfillment, there's just an actualizing of your goals. There's lots of means to being successful with music, in conjunction with other things. Sometimes maybe you have to be an actuary and play the clarinet, if you want to eat early on.
Yeah.
So but always I advise anybody, follow the bliss, follow the joy, and just do it. And if you're in the right spot, you're either going to get hired or not.
Yeah.
If you don't get hired, okay, you might want to reconsider. Because maybe it looks glamorous, but there's nothing glamorous about starving.
Yeah.
So and I think many people have made amended choices to music careers, but there's tons of things to do in music. So anybody young starting out, I would say, look at all the mega options. There's, with technology now, I mean, I never thought that I'd be doing movie scores, but I sat and taught myself how to use that software.
Yeah.
And boom, there I was, so it's fun. It's great income, and I'm really good at it. So, but I had to sit a whole summer. It took me like 3 months to just sit and figure out how to cut the doggone Mac on.
Yeah.
And start working with the software. So there's lots of options out there. Lots.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for all of you for joining me and us here at Classical Schmassical. If you at home enjoyed the show, there's definitely more where that came from, so make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you at home are in the Chicago area by chance, you do not want to miss this concert, which is taking place the same day that this episode premieres, October 30th at the University of Chicago. And if you want to continue the conversation, please join the Discord linked in the description or visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/classical schmassical. That's schmassical, SCHMASSICAL. And remember, as always, stay classy and questionably classical.